Good morning, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we go through AI news and rate them essential, important, and optional. Today, I have John, Liz, Paul, Ankash, and special guest Ashish Bhatia, who join us periodically. Thanks for joining, Ashish.
Thank you.
So you can follow along with the articles we post for today on gaiinsights.com/articles. So let's go to the first article, please, Ankash.
Sure, thanks, Luda. So the first one that we have for today comes from Microsoft. So Microsoft's Build 2025 is going on, and they have defined it as Age of Agents and Open Agentic Web.
Yeah, that comes from the communications chief at Microsoft, and it puts a lot of updates into this very brief announcement. What do you think about this, Paul?
Age of we are in the age of everyday AI agent announcement. So this is optional, but shows everyone's working hard on this.
Okay, John, what do you think?
I actually thought this was important to essential because they have a whole bunch of announcements in here. And first of all, obviously Microsoft's such a mega producer, so they've got this thing across GitHub. They've got this notion of the AI Foundry, the Azure AI Foundry. And as I understand the AI Foundry service, it's got what they call this Microsoft Entrada Agent ID, where they actually, sounds like the passport kind of notion in, A to A from Google. And this supports both A to A and MCP. I don't know. I mean, and they even had a kicker in there about their Microsoft Discovery product, which is on scientific discovery. I thought this conglomeration of announcements together, support for the emerging standards of A to A and MCP, and Microsoft's registry and so forth for security and such. I thought together, given who they are and how important they are in the whole ecosystem, was at least important, maybe essential.
Okay, so Ashish, since you used a lot of these tools, from your perspective, how deep is this infrastructure that Microsoft is building? Could you give us your view, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that is to think through. I mean, this article is what we call book of news, right? Because Build is like a week-long conversation or conference, and there are a ton of announcements. So what you see here is kind of a book of news. So that's why you see kind of parts of everything. But each announcement in its own is like a thing, right? So we could kind of deep dive there. But some of the things that John called out, right? AI Foundry is super interesting. The Windows AI Foundry, Azure AI Foundry is your pro developer kind of tool chain for agent development. But introduction of the Agent AI Foundry, Windows AI Foundry is net new, which is now folks can develop custom agentic things for device, your machines, Windows machine. And you can create very tailored local resources, right? You can leverage those kind of things. So that's interesting in that sense. Ability to fine-tune your copilot on your data, that is another one. So this is not just RAG, right? This is your fine-tuning the model underneath. So that's why I was like John as well, important trending towards essential. That's how I kind of thought about this news, and it covers all stacks: Windows stack, Azure stack, Biz application stack. So there's a whole lot for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, I was also important because when you dig in, they're seriously committed to building agents and providing infrastructure and agentic systems. Like they talk about MCP, without the protocol, it's not possible. So they're committing to that, they're extending it. So it appears to me that this is an important slew of announcements. Okay, Liz, going important, what do you think?
I thought it was also important. I was really impressed with the, I mean, at any time Microsoft makes big announcements like this, but their AI Foundry has 1,900 AI models. Clearly, they're committed to this. So I thought it was an important read.
Okay, important it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about how Salesforce has unveiled AI digital teammates in Slack.
Okay, so this is a fight for the customers, right? So we have Microsoft with their agents. We have Google with Workspace, and now we have Slack with Salesforce and all. So essentially, this is about integration of the agent force with Slack. Slack has an edge on both the Microsoft and Google because they have the communication channel. Slack is essentially the communication platform. So they have more of that, and what Agentforce is going to do is use it to find insights and help users to be more productive. So I was tempted to put it as important, but would love to hear your opinions. Paul, you are really into Slack, love Slack. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this topic is really important. Who owns interface? For decades, the killer interface was Microsoft Outlook, and that was open on many executives' desks here. I think we're moving into what's going to be the new default. Is it a ChatGPT from OpenAI? Is it Slack? So I think it's a really important trend of it, and it's a huge battleground. As we know, behavior changes is happening quickly, and as John talks about in e-commerce, who's in the beginning of the demand chain for e-commerce is really important. I think the same thing, who's on top of the demand chain for automating employee productivity is important here. This particular announcement, though, it's an announcement here. They don't have customers here. I think we've got to stop getting excited. In my view, I think we need to understand where adoption is in all this here. Glean's also making a big push in this area here. We know 4 companies looking at Glean versus all these things here. So important trend, but this particular article optional.
Okay. Ashish, what do you think?
I think Paul mentioned a few things I want to underscore, right? A few years, 7 to 8 years, there's this transition that happened. If I take my own case, I would spend most of my time in Outlook, responding to emails, communicating, and kind of working with folks. But somewhere around 7 to 8 years, the transition happened to Teams, right? And most of my time today at work is Teams only, right? We're totally exchanging documents, having meetings, and communicating actively in Teams. And then, this is something that teams do as well, that now in your meetings, you can bring a digital helper, right? Again, it's still very early days, so you can bring in a facilitator. Even if you don't want to record the meeting, for example, you can bring a facilitator who could summarize, who could draw insights from your conversations and things like that. So this is a stepping stone to the next stage where you can invite digital employees or digital agents inside your conversation, inside your meetings. Today, they are silent, fly on the wall, recording or kind of summarizing things. But you can imagine gradually in future, they'll bring insights. They might have domain expertise, right? They can have other skills that they can bring to the game, into the conversation. That's the trend. I agree with Paul. It's light on details. I would have loved to see a little bit more details. And again, this is something that some of the other platforms already scored.
And as she's keep going with the vision, you could also see that whatever the interface is, you've got autonomous robots for you already can do it. So they're giving you status. Here's your news update. I went and did this for you, just giving you heads up. So you got your own personal work team, workers managing in that same area.
Yeah, but it's interesting that the Salesforce not just providing agents; they're specialized agents that look for specialized angles in the prior chats, right? So they come prepared. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to give this more of an important. They do have some case studies in here about how it's helped decrease the difficulty and cost of responding to customers. I think that the environment is one thing, as you said, and I agree, going from Outlook to Teams and so forth. But Slack is a natural environment to integrate digital workers, and the reason I say that is that the asynchronous topic-based stuff is just one step away from a conversation with anybody, a human or a robot. And as you were just saying, Luda, the ability to go back and mine the Slack content and say, okay, here's where a particular kind of agent might be useful and so forth. The numbers I think are about 40 million to 60 million people use Slack every day. And I don't know, I think it's a very powerful environment. I think it really gives Salesforce a leg up in terms of implementation. And I can imagine somebody, spending most of their time in a combination of Slack and Salesforce if I'm working in an organization. So I was going to give it an important.
Yeah, I was on the important side as well. Liz, break the tie here. So there's some optional and some important. What do you think?
I think it's important. I think so. I agree with the team's assessment. I think the important news to me is that these agents and digital teammates are following you wherever your workflow is. So Slack is where a lot of communication happens, and now they're offering that there, which is going to be great. I think it's important because where these agents are most productive is where you spend the most time. So if you happen to be a Slack forward company, which many companies are, it's great that they're going to offer it right where you are, and you don't have to go off platform or use another tool to be productive there. So I think it's an important trend. I think basically agents are going to be wherever you are and make your flow more productive. So I thought it was an important read.
Okay, guys.
John, a little before we go, I asked the robots. The robots said there's 30 million daily users on Teams and 40 million on Slack.
Ah.
Luda, one more thing that we should think through, right? I mean, the reason this transition is important is a lot of times, especially on busy days, we get subsequent meetings around the same time, right? And you can't attend each, and you have to somehow prioritize it. Imagine a time you can, as Paul was saying, you can send your agent to one
Send your robot,
right, and be in the most important one. So I agree with Liz. Like this is something we should think deeply about.
Guys, important. By the power of the chalk, important it is. Let's proceed.
Next one comes from Workday, and they have unveiled next generation of Illuminate agents to transform HR and finance operations.
Yes, a use case, an announcement. What did you think about this, Ashish?
I've been using Workdays recently a lot. So it is a good, and sometimes it's frustrating. It leaves a bunch of things on the table, and this is especially when you kind of applying jobs or scanning through resumes and things like that. So I would love, again, more agentic and AI oriented kind of extraction, which is actually completing the job and not leaving things on the table, because that's what you expect from something like this to perform, right? So again, interesting. What I lacked in this article was demos or proof in the pudding, any data. I mean, feels like an announcement. That's why I thought it is an optional news.
Optional. Going optional, Liz?
Optional for me too. Same.
Okay. Paul, John, going optional on this one. Yeah. All right. Optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one comes from AWS, and it talks about how Apodia Group enhances visual information extraction from banking documents with multimodal models using Llama Factory on Amazon SageMaker Hyperpod.
I love the title. It doesn't fit anywhere, but it's very descriptive. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I was going to give the summary between important and essential. This issue, the issue they're talking about, know your customer stuff, is a very important issue for any financial services institution. When I was at PwC, the U.S. firm had a contract with Citibank, and the Know Your Customer bill at Citibank for each year, just the U.S., not globally, was $150 million from PwC. So this issue, and then this is one of those great, Amazon case studies where it really talks in detail about how they did it. and what the implications were. And so that would, for me, would get me to important. Where it might slop over into essential for me, and Paul, you've talked a lot about this over the months, the ability to take PDF documents and unstructured data and bring them into your workflow through the use of, generative AI is, really a big deal, because so much of the coda of unused data, or the data in organizations, Gartner says about 90% is unstructured data that's not accessible, if you will, and this opens up that. So that's where I was between important, accessible, a good case study, an important area for banking, maybe essential. And Luda, as you're doing this, I want to remind you of something President Putin said to President Trump, is it doesn't matter what the votes are, it matters who counts the votes.
See? The power of the chalk. Okay, yes. Brings all kinds of memories, John. Thank you.
Yes, I figured.
Okay, so let's, so important, essential for John. Ashish, what do you think? It did quite deeply into how they fine-tuned the model, and in this case it was Quen 2.5, right? So it's a powerful model to begin with, and they were training it to see and very quickly find the right information, specifically financial tables, right? How did it strike you? Was it explanatory enough? Was it substantial enough to go essential here?
Yeah, for me as well, right? I marked it number like it's trending towards essential, but definitely important. Couple of things that happen when you're using off-the-shelf model is it's not domain aware, and it leaves that last kind of 5-10% on the table, and sometimes that 5-10% kind of makes the experience beautiful or frustrating for whoever is using it, right? So taking that off by training a model for that domain, for that use case, and with the level of details that they have, I would say essential.
Okay, going for his big E. Liz?
Yeah, I could support essential on this one, for especially banking, in the banking industry.
Yeah, Paul? Yeah. Okay, essential it is. Let's proceed, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from Epoch AI, and they talk about how fast can algorithms advance capabilities.
Yeah, I know what Paul is going to say. What do you think, Ashish?
This is something that we have known, right? I mean, I think most of the labs have been shouting top up, and the capital investment also kind of indicates the same trend. What they have done is they've divided the kind of sections, or they've divided the conversation into two parts: compute dependent and compute independent improvement, right? Obviously, the small incremental algorithm improvements lead to kind of compute independent improvement, but the massive improvements so far have come from heavy compute, which kind of something that we already know. So for that reason, I've marked it as kind of optional.
And I don't know, sometimes I'm puzzled how they pick these things to research. This is quite a bit of thinking, researching, putting it together. I mean, aren't there other areas of interest? I don't know. So, Paul, I'll let you speak.
Optional every day. I feel like a broken record. I'm gonna start sending my robot, Luda. I think I'm starting. My algorithm's figured out.
I thought you were going to go triple optional, because their original assumption is they're trying to really support or refute an assumption that we will have an AGI by self-improvement of those models over time, and so it just will accelerate. And so they just, the whole thing was wrapped in that assumption, essentially. So I thought you will say triple optional. Leaders need to be doing other stuff. Okay, John.
Yeah, I'm happy to play the part of Paul. Triple optional, and to your point, this is one of those things that I look at it as a tax that comes from research. When I was in academia, you have, I don't know, 10 to 20% of the people who, take a rock. I mean, take an idea, hide it behind a rock, spend a whole lot of time, and then find it behind the rock. I mean, this is so friggin' obvious. It's not worthwhile. But some people just love, getting technical about the tautological.
Yeah. Liz going super optional. Okay with you?
Optional. Yep.
Optional. Okay. Sounds good. Optional it is. Next one and last one. Ankash, please.
Yes, Luda. So the last one comes from BMW Group Purchasing and talks about how they are using different Gen AI tools that they have created over the last few months.
Yeah, they're building a group in Romania that will focus specifically on a part of Gen AI application to supply chains and the like. What did you think about this, Liz?
So this one got me, of course, excited, given my background in automotive, to hear BMW kind of taking a lead stance and developing, especially in the purchasing area. So anybody who's worked in the auto business or big Fortune 500 companies knows purchasing in the supplier network is usually one of the most complex to break through, and it also has a big, large area of opportunity for savings. So this was, I thought, pretty interesting, that BMW is taking a lead in this, doing a multi-agent system with a central hub in Romania, but also taking time to train their employees, that they've already got 1,800 active users on this. And really their goal is to get this where it's running itself. So they're trying to get it to where you need human assistance, which, obviously in purchasing, that's probably going to be a ways off, but that's their goal. So I thought this was really interesting. It was very detailed. I think it shows that they're taking it seriously. It's a little interesting. They just launched it late 2024. So this is new for them, but they're seeing some progress. So for me, I thought this was exciting. I can imagine that in the auto industry, a lot of other players are also trying to do the same thing. I think supply chain, especially in this land of tariffs and other things that are going on, is going to be incredibly important. So if you can have AI technologies to assist you in finding different vendors, et cetera, I think it's a game changer. So I thought this was I would call it important to essential if you're in the auto business article, and impressed that BMW is kind of taking a lead here.
Okay. Important rating from Liz. What did you think, Ashish?
I had actually marked it optional. And the reason was, like, I thought a lot of the things that they're talking about is happening in other industries. I mean, auto industry is kind of catching up, and the big players in auto industry have been slow in adopting a lot of this intelligent capabilities, agentic capabilities. So anybody in the auto industry, maybe for them it is super important, but otherwise I thought it was an optional news.
Okay. Important optional. John, what did you think?
Yeah, I was also going to give it an optional. I think, Liz, I think their intent is well detailed, but their actual, numbers and impact and so forth is kind of missing from this thing. So, I feel like losing 20 pounds, but I get on the scale and it's not there, so it's, that's my intent. It's been my intent for sometimes.
Okay, so Paul, break the tie here. What do you think?
Luda, I'm going to give you my vote. I'm going to sell you my vote for 2 Bitcoins.
Okay, so Liz,
that's how it will work.
Thank you, Liz. I'm going to go optional on this one for the reason that they didn't detail what they were specifically doing and didn't give us any value statements, like how impactful was it? We know it will be impactful, but they didn't state it. Okay with optional?
I'm okay with optional. I do think that it's correct that the auto industry tends to lag here, and especially since they started it in 2024. But I do think it's good that they're doing it, and I think it's going to signal to others. So looking forward to seeing what happens.
Yeah, no, that's right. Okay, optional it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, to the scorecard. And in the meantime, Paul, John, Ashish, any announcements? Liz?
We had a really good discussion last night at Learning Lab. Ashish walked through software testing versus Gen AI testing. So I thought it was really excellent presentation, Ashish, and I've had 8 or 9 people already ask for recordings of that. So it was a really good presentation. John also did 5 minutes with Dr. John on the exploding AI tools for the demand generation and sales that we're going to be leading more and more into in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it was a really great job, Ashish.
Thank you.
Okay, so for today, we have one essential, extracting information from financial banking tables, 2 importance, and the rest is optional. Thank you, Ashish, Liz, for joining. Really appreciate it. Thank you for listeners. There's some new folks who were texting and participating. Eric, Steele, really appreciate it. Lucinda, as always. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.